To show you how much the government is in bed with the banks and the financial institutions, you only have to look at what they did with the CMB program this year. I mean, literally, you have a deteriorating housing market and the government comes in and says, yeah, we're going to buy more of your risky, shitty mortgages. Canada's financial system is on the brink right now because it is built upon lending to people with worse and worse credit, with people who are less and less likely to pay that money back.
Adjustables are bread and honey.
So do applicants ever get rejected?
The CMHC and the CMB program need to be scrapped. You know, there is a huge problem with the housing market in Canada, and it's one that the government refuses to acknowledge, and it has to do with the banking sector. And in this video, I want to explain to you how that works, how that impacts bad lending practices, and how that impacts housing demand, which takes up a lot of the housing supply, which then leads to higher prices. This is a dynamic that few people really understand, and I really want to show you this, because to understand this and to be educated on this, you can help educate other people, which will hopefully help change sentiment and public opinion around these things. Most people aren't even aware what the CMB program is. The CMB program is Canada Mortgage Bonds. This is when the government directly buys mortgage-backed securities, which are essentially just a lot of mortgages bundled together from the banking system. Now, it can be said it is a direct bailout of the banking system, because essentially you are moving the risk from the banking system to the taxpayers' buck, because these Canada mortgage bonds are essentially backed by the Canadian government 100%, and they are 100% insured with the government of Canada's AAA rating. So the thing is, Canada mortgage bonds basically influence bad lending practices. There was talk about scrapping the program, and then the government came out and said they're actually going to increase the amount that they're going to buy. The thing is, there is a lot of these bonds that are issued, and we're talking billions of dollars here, and it definitely does influence lending practices, because if banks and financial institutions know that they have a guaranteed buyer off the government, they are more likely to not give a damn about who they lend to. And we've definitely seen that just increase and increase and increase. And it's not just the result of the CMB program either, and that's why I wanted to get into CMHC and why that should be scrapped. And let's talk about that. So CMHC mortgage insurance, we're all aware of it, and probably a lot of you are under the impression that this actually helps people buy a home by putting less amounts down. People can put less than 20% down, and that helps people buy a home. But the problem is, CMHC mortgage insurance, and in fact any mortgage insurance, in my opinion, should be scrapped, and here is why. When you have these mortgage insurances, essentially what they do, they move the risk off the banking system and they move it to the taxpayer or this private mortgage insurer. And a lot of these private mortgage insurers are guaranteed by the taxpayer anyway. So essentially you have these private mortgage insurance companies and also the CMHC, which is the biggest mortgage insurer, and they all guarantee these mortgages via these insurance policies. Now, there is a lot of nuance there, and the banks, they know about this and they don't really care about it. But the thing is, when you think about mortgage insurance, you've only got to think, if somebody is guaranteeing that mortgage for the bank or writing an insurance policy against defaults on the people taking out the mortgage, and the people taking out the mortgage are being vetted by the banks, that is a broken system, guys. That is insanely broken. How can you not have massive moral hazard in the banking industry? These two components, the CMB program and also the CMHC, have escalated housing prices massively. Canada has done many things, both the Harper government and the Trudeau government, to essentially bail out the banks. There was also the IMPP. That was another mortgage purchase program which was done by the Canadian government. government. So you had all these different things that have happened, and essentially what's happened as a result is you've had home prices that have skyrocketed because you've allowed more and more people who shouldn't be able to buy, they are able to buy. And this is precisely the problem, guys, with the housing market in general. All these people should not have been able to buy, have been able to buy. And basically, as bubbles go, as I've been through many times on this channel, as prices escalate, you have to be able to, by default, lend to more and more risky people. And that's exactly what's happened. So as the mortgages get more and more risky, it really doesn't matter who's insuring it, whether the government's insuring it or whether it's private mortgage insurance, because at the end of the day, you get to a point where the quality of the people who you've lent mortgages to is so bad that they start defaulting, and then the whole system implodes on itself. And we are pretty much right at that point right now. But to show you how dumb and stupid the government, and to show you how much the government is in bed with the banks and the financial institutions, you only have to look at what they did with the CMB program this year. I mean, literally, you have a deteriorating housing market and the government comes in and says, yeah, we're going to buy more of your risky, shitty mortgages. And that's exactly what they did. They bought up a lot more of these shitty, ridiculously bad mortgages. And the moral hazard is, like I said, created by the fact that there is an illusion of insurance created by the CMHC and these private mortgage insurers. When it comes down to it, the CMHC does not have the money to cover all its liabilities, and neither do these private mortgage insurers. And you've even got pension plans. You have pension plans like the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan that are highly invested in these subprime mortgage insurers. Because if people are of bad quality, that essentially means subprime. I mean, you only have to look at some of the products that these insurers actually have. One is a zero down payment, or a borrowed down payment as they call it. Another is the new immigrant program, which helps people with limited credit history buy a house. I mean, does that sound like a really safe, prudent investment? I don't think so. But this is how you get prices to escalate. You know, people think that it's just because we have this lack of supply. And I'm afraid to say all politicians across all parties in this country, they tout the same thing. We have a housing supply problem. And I've been through it many times, and I will link a video at the end of this one that demonstrates that that is just not the case. We have a housing demand problem as well as a supply problem. You can't just focus and be completely siloed when it comes to supply and demand. You can't just say, I'm just going to look at supply. There is obviously way more things at play than just supply, and I think you guys are smart enough to realize this. But the government, the financial institutions, the media, and even many YouTubers, that's the only argument and reasoning that they can come up with of why housing prices have escalated. Pierre has let it slip many times, actually, that we are in a housing bubble. And he doesn't refer to it as that all the time, but he's let that slip many of times. And when you're in a bubble, like I said, you have prices that escalate because of things like rampant bad lending. Lending just gets worse and worse and worse because guess what? People can't afford these homes. Their incomes haven't grown. And even if you've got speculators that are leveraging upon leveraging upon leveraging themselves, guess what? The risk is just going up and up and up in the financial system, as I think you're aware. So you don't have to be a brain surgeon or a rocket scientist to work this one out. I think it's very, very simple. But I think what people struggle to realize is nobody is offering the solution that I am saying would be a great solution to help move that risk back onto financial institutions, which is scrapping the CMB program, that's a given, and scrapping the CMHC, and also banning all private mortgage insurance. So mortgage insurance should just be banned, because what that does is it creates huge moral hazard in your financial system. And I know a lot of people don't realize this, they can't work it out, but the fact is Canada's financial system is on the brink right now. It is really in a bad place because it is built upon lending to people with worse and worse credit, with people who are less and less likely to pay that money back. And you've only got to think about mortgage renewals, guys. What kind of bank doesn't even test the credit score when they renew some people's mortgage? That is pretty much commonplace in Canada. They're not checking out people's credit when they renew their mortgage. So that goes to show what a precarious place we are really in. If you're looking for a VPN to get around Trudeau's censorship law, yours, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. If you've enjoyed this video, you may like this video that I was talking about earlier. I suggest you watch it from the beautiful Yoho National Park. You should also check out this playlist here, and I will see you in the next one, guys.